anybody around that I think loves independent wrestling more than I do, it's got to be the president himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Stamper. How we doing, my man?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
I'm stoked, man. Like, I do an indie wrestling podcast. I got the president, by God.
I'll take it. Let's go.
I'll give it, man. I'm excited to have you on. You're doing a lot of great things for independent wrestling right now. Couldn't be, I love what you're doing. Let the folks at home know what's coming up for you here this weekend, for example.
This weekend alone, I have 3 events, 2 live action events with MCW Pro Wrestling. We have our annual Shamrock Memorial Cup on Saturday, on today. And then on Sunday, we have MCW Legacy, bringing back some of our stars from the past, blending them in with some of the talent of today. But on top of that, Sunday morning, we have a fan fest going on called Fan Jam that is just packed with talent. I mean, Roderick Strong is going to be there, Flip Gordon, Ricardo Rodriguez, Speedball Mike Bailey, Rebby Hardy, and I'm going to forget the wrong name. I have to look it up. And Gothic Baby will be there. Matt and Jeff Hardy. If I think I said that. I don't know. I'm so like all over the place with this event because it's going to be so many people, so much action. Action Andretti will be there too. Haha, that was fun. Brittany Blake, Gia Scott, Veda Scott. It's going to be insane. It's going to be chock-a-block full of people.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of names. That's awesome.
And it's free entry into the Fan Jam.
Oh, okay. You can't beat that. And that's
right,
out
a lot
in
of convention. Right, it's out in Maryland. It's at 1000 Joppa Farm Road in Joppa, Maryland. It's the MCW. Well, used to be the MCW Arena, now named the RJ Meyer Arena for one of our favorite homegrown guys who passed during the pandemic from leukemia. So now RJ Meyer Arena, 1000 Joppa Farm Road in Joppa, Maryland. Go to mcwprowrestling.com. You can find out all the latest information about everything that's going to happen this weekend.
Wow, I'm stoked for it, man. MCW, solid product for as long as I can remember, doing a lot of great things. And I see you up in the mix with Revolver a lot as well. What can you tell the folks at home about what's going on in Revolver lately?
I've been nothing. I mean, the last month alone, we've been in Iowa, Ohio, and Texas. 2 of those 3 events were sold out, and one was pretty dang close to being. And it was our debut in Texas, and we sold out the building. And we were so panicked going into Texas because we were like, how many tickets have we sold? This, we don't know. This feels weird. And then by middle of the week, we were like half sold and like, okay, we're feeling better. All right, it'll be air quotes, it'll be a nice draw. And then like we got to the event and we're like, we sold out. We sold out? Like it was awesome. Same thing in Ohio. We sold out. We're returning back to Dayton on August 3rd. It's a Thursday. It's the Thursday of SummerSlam weekend. So coincidental things in the life of wrestling. Like we were initially going to be on the 5th. Oh, SummerSlam's on the 5th. Well, we don't want to compete against SummerSlam. Let's go on the 4th. Oh, SmackDown's in Dayton. Okay, let's not do that. So Thursday, August 3rd, Dayton, Ohio. Check us out, Wrestling Revolver. And then you can stay in town, go to SmackDown, then you drive up to Detroit and go do SummerSlam.
See, that's a perfect weekend in my book.
There you go.
Yeah, man. You'd mentioned, you're going down to Texas. You're not sure what the draw is going to be. And that made me think, wrestling, in my opinion, we're in another boom, especially the independent scene, as the past few years, and especially here recently. I mean, crowds everywhere. Do you feel that way too, or how are we right now in independent wrestling?
I mean, it's a good blend. I think the places that come out and do it right, and there's we can spell it out, are doing really well. The places that we have to advertise. The places that have a good product. The places that bring in good talent. Like they're doing well, but it takes effort to do that. What's unfortunate, like certainly when the pandemic hit and we lost a lot of live events happening or with live crowds, when we came out of that, a lot of the stronger places came out like guns a-blazing and crowds were packed and it was great. And then it was like, oh, now is the return of the folks that are like, oh, you mean I can just put up a wrestling ring and have an event without any lick of advertisement or anybody that anybody might know ever on an event. Like, no, this takes some work you need to do. Like, you need to do the groundwork to do street teaming. You need to put up either ads or even just utilize social media. You need to talk it up to your community. You need to do the steps that it's going to take to get people to know that you're even having an event, and then start doing the things that's going to take to fill your crowd out.
Thank you. Thank you. Very well put. Definitely. Well, what are some of the places, in Phil Stamper's opinion, that are doing it right? If you can give me 3 to 5.
Ooh. I mean, I like to believe, Revolver's doing it pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
I hold to that. Wow. Yeah, I'm like, you're putting me on the spot. And my brain's like,
I know, because I know you want to name so many, and
Right.
if that
It's
takes
like
the whole podcast, we can.
meltdown. House of Glory, I think, has doesn't get enough attention for some of the things that it's doing up in New York. I really enjoy what I see of their product. I guess I should mention Prestige Wrestling.
You got to give them their due, even though,
Deadlock Pro is
Yeah.
another solid. Like, they were like this is a positive term. So if anybody's never heard this term, I found out today a lot that I use colloquialisms that people are like, I don't know what that means. So this is a good thing. Deadlock Pro is like the sleeper hit. Like, they came out of the woodwork. Not a lot of people like knew who they were. These aren't people that are all contracted everywhere else, but they do an amazing event. I really I have now worked one event with them, but that one event was a lot of fun, and I see the talent that they have, and I'm like, this is like almost like a hidden gem. I think they do it right. And there's so many more pockets that are out there that I'm like, when you see what they do, it's like, this is done really well. And I see super passionate people out there doing it. Like Matt Griffith, who runs I almost said the wrong name of the company, that runs Action Wrestling down in Georgia.
Yeah.
Every time you see his name pop up, it's like, okay, here it comes. Like, he's going to talk about it. Jaden Newman, who's running TWE Chattanooga. And now, they've just had, they were just the hosting site for the Scenic City Invitational, and that's gotten a lot of buzz and captured a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm excited. Like, okay, like, we're in a good phase. There's a lot of talk about wrestling, and I don't think it really left, but it's really coming out of the pandemic, hitting into the mainstream culture again, and getting more and more people aware of it again. Heels is coming back for season 2. That's gonna get some more attention from some people. So I'm really excited at what continues to grow in wrestling.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I agree 110%. I got to give you your due. I don't know how you do it. God bless you. I love indie wrestling, but you putting out these weekly calendars of every single independent event. I mean, you guys got to see this for yourself. I mean, event after event, Phil takes the time and puts it out there. So, number one, major props for that. Number two, I've gotten a little bit of trouble my day for not pulling for just one team, for promoting it all. I've gotten my fair share of heat for that, for the silliest reasons. Have you run into any of that sort of thing? Because I see you promoting everything.
Oh, no.
What do you have to say about it?
Oh my God. So there's like 3 things in my brain. I will let you know, by the way, I'm running on like 5 hours of sleep in the last 3 days. So, like, who knows what my brain's going to say today.
So that filter's worn down. All right.
Right. It's at the bottom right now. So there is a promoter who I will not mention by name, who I remember about, had to have been at least 10 years ago, 12 years ago, said something to me like, there's no wrestling anymore. There's no wrestling events. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I see events all the time that are being advertised and put out there. And I used to do an indie listing before, and I was like, I'm going to put this list together. And so I just started to build literally what I was just seeing from my friends post on Facebook, and just started to keep this running list. And it just has continued to build and build and build and grow. I don't really get a lot of people submitting stuff to me, which makes it a little bit more challenging to populate. But now I get into this cadence of how, like, I find things. I'm now a little smarter about it. I use Google Docs, so I can be like on any computer in the world and just add in an event if I want to. And so like when something pops up, I pop up Google Docs and okay, I can put it into the spreadsheet. And that helps me to track everything and populate everything. And it'll be like, oh, I'm on the phone with somebody and I'm not really paying attention. I'm like, okay, I have 5 minutes right here, or I'm in my office job and don't have a meeting for another 5 minutes. Okay, well I'm gonna kill some time. Or I don't know, or I'm watching television. I was like, I'm just gonna sit here, but I'm not gonna just veg. I'm gonna also work on this on the side. So and once a week I'll do a search for this is no secret, so anybody can do this. I go to Facebook, I type the word wrestling, and I click on events, and I filter for this week, and that's how I help populate some of that list every week.
Yeah.
And so, talent, they keep saying, hey, Phil, what's going on in this particular week? You can also do that yourself. So now I send this out to, I have an independent wrestling contact list. This is for media and press that cover indie wrestling I'm at about 500 emails for just that. And then probably like 2 or 3 dozen Facebook groups that I post on that talk about wrestling, just to share the calendar.
Wow.
And then even for when it comes to the companies I work with, like I also do mainstream media pushes to those companies for the cities that those companies are in, to help them. But I do get that heat now and again, like, and it's sort of oddly tied in together because people see the calendar. They're like, oh, you have all this free time, Phil. Did I mention 5 hours of sleep in 3 days? The companies that I do specific marketing for, well, I work for those companies. I get paid by those companies. It's part of my deal. I do press for those companies. Right. And so some of doing the calendar was like, well, I can have a platform where I can put out all of the companies, unbiased. I have a place where they can go. And the places that say, you need to do my stuff for free. No, I don't. But I have this way that can help you. I just might need some more information from you to put it in there. And because it is manually curated, like there's no like auto feed that comes in from anywhere. What was I gonna say? There's no auto feed that comes in from anywhere. So like honestly, when I miss stuff, it's because just that I missed it. It isn't with an intention of not getting it in. I just missed it. And so I do get a little bit of heat for that when like, hey, Phil, you didn't put me in your list this week. Did I piss you off or are you mad at me? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have somebody who is, I don't
started the sentence, man.
Right. I have somebody who is a producer for a televised wrestling company. There you go. I won't say where, who was also a promoter of their own events. And they messaged me one day and they were like, how did they word it? Are you just mad at me, bro? Like, what did we do to you to offend you? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you never put us in your calendar. And I was like, I do. I was like, did I miss one? And I go in, I see that they have an upcoming event. I was like, no, it was totally didn't mean to miss you. I just didn't know you had an event. Gladly will add you. Feel free to proactively send me stuff. Like, it's definitely not a slight. And like it happened like one more time, like 2 months later, and he messaged me again. I was like, listen, not intentional. So now it's in my brain. I do try to, for that particular place, like I do try to find them more particular. But like the places that get a hold of me when they're missed make me go like, huh? Because some of them will also go, oh, you're the only way that we get out there, that people even know that we exist. And I'm like, well, I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like I'm like the backup. Like I'm the place like, this past WrestleMania weekend, somebody messaged me and was like, because of you, I found this one random event. It was one of them, like the micro wrestling, I think it was micro wrestling or micro wrestling federation, one of the two, that was having an event in California. They were like, I never thought I would go to one, happened to look at your calendar, saw it there, was like, I'm going to go check it out, and had so much fun. And it was like, that's cool, because that was the initial intent of the calendar. And now I have so many people who are inside wrestling who are like, hey, I want this to help me find more bookings.
Okay.
Which, hey, not like I didn't use it for that purpose too. So, get it out there, whatever you want to use it for. but I shouldn't be a company's only way that they're marketing. Like that floors me a little bit when I hear that. And it does kill me because sometimes I'll go like I'll go through some sites every now and again. I do a round and like, okay, let me see if this company's running. Oh, I don't see anything advertised. Okay. And a week later I go back to their site. Oh, here's pictures from our event this past weekend. And I'm like, you had an event? Like you didn't say anything about it. And I look at the pictures and I'm like, oh, that's why you only had 8 people in your crowd. Like, sometimes the proof is in the work you do. Like, and that's not a knock on the work of talent. It's the work, a promoter is literally in the name. It's one who promotes.
Mm-hmm.
Promote.
We're on the same page. And obviously, with all this work for the calendars, and you catch some slack for it here or there, flack rather, I mean, obviously there's a very still healthy love of wrestling there. And first off, props to that. But there's people that's been in the industry way less longer than you have that are pretty jaded, that are far more jaded. My point is, how do you keep that healthy love for pro wrestling?
Is it healthy? I mean, it has to be somewhere deep down inside. It has to be an interest. It has to be something you want to do, that you want to get people excited for. And that's part of it. Like for me, wrestling hasn't been, how do we word this? Wrestling hasn't been my fun thing in a long time. That doesn't mean it's not fun. It just means that for me, this is a job. And part of that job is you need to get people in seats. You need to get people to come to the event. That's the whole point of this. And if no one is coming to see your event, oh, okay, what's going on? So, it is more than just the side gig that I'm interested in. I mean, I definitely have an interest, but it's also, it is also what work for me now. I make it work for me. Yeah. Yeah.
I dig it. And like I say, props to you for all you're doing. Take us back, because I know there's plenty of other things you do. You have acting gigs, you got your own job, you got your own life, but take us back to when you found wrestling, what brought you to wrestling, and your first year in the business. What'd you see there that you weren't expecting?
I mean, I was definitely a fan when I was a kid, and that was really what got me in. And I was one of those kids that like wrote to the major companies at the time and was like, "Why can't kids wrestle? I think it'd be cool." I only have one of them. It's in a notebook somewhere, I think, in a box in the other room. I have a letter from WCW that
nice.
Like they wrote me back and they were like, you really should be like probably like 18 and trained. And there was even like, and buy our book on how to become a pro wrestler. I did not buy the book. I didn't have money because I was a kid. But so I knew at a super young age, oh, you have to get trained. And when I got to the time I was getting ready to graduate high school, I guess let me explain. When I was in middle school, I was like one of the tall kids because I hit my growth spurt when I was like 10.
Okay.
And at a whopping 5'3" at 10 years old. I was the second tallest person in my class. By the time I reached 9th grade, I was a whopping 5'4". And I only grew 2 more inches. And so like by the time I graduated high school, I was like, okay, let's sit back at the reality of it, of where wrestling was still a very big man's game more often than not at that time. I knew, if anything ever went wrong in wrestling, if I ever got hurt, I had to have quote the backup. And so I should probably get a college education. Well, that means I'm going to have to pay for it. And I can't pay for both training and going to college at the same time. So I made the choice. I'm going to start going to college, but I started working in the back for companies at first. And not a lot of people know that. So I started primarily working with Independent Wrestling Federation that was run by Cue Ball Carmichael down in Virginia, and different wrestling federation that was ran up in State College, Pennsylvania, and just started working in the back just to learn, what is this business like? What is this community like? Is this really a place I want to be? Because, as a kid, there was the steroid scandal. There were all these things already all the way back then about Vince in the news. And it was like, is this really what I want to be doing? and in that community, I'm like, yeah, I don't see anything weird, wrong, bad. Like, let's get in. And oddly enough, I was now at my 4-year school. Since you're from that away, I went to Frostburg State University in Western Maryland,
Okay.
and just as I went there, my first year, I was having some stomach issues. I'd had stomach issues since I was in high school, and a doctor misdiagnosed me with a precancerous condition called Barrett's esophagus. And so I knew I'd have to get treated and all that stuff. And this opportunity came up to get trained, and in my brain, I'm like, well, it's now or never. And so I was going to school full time. I had 2 jobs, and I was starting training 2 hours away from where I was going to school. While I'm getting ready for thinking I'm going to have to deal with a precancerous thing, come to find out the doctor was wrong, didn't have it. He just thought I had it and then got the pathology back, didn't tell me for 6 weeks I didn't have it. But that's really what spurred me on to go get in ring trained. By that time, though, because I had been working in the back for places, people were already showing me stuff, and I was already knowing what was going on. Like, I had already competed in wrestling while I was in high school, in judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So, like, I already had a little bit of a leg up compared to some other people, and I already had connections inside of wrestling. That does not mean that the first trainer I ever had was not dog shit. And I remember my first match I had away, and it was with somebody who I knew, and it was like, I knew, oh, this was bad. I didn't do good. And like, so I knew, okay, I had to get more. I had to get more knowledge and more training and more learning. And the learning never stops. And, that was an important lesson for me to learn very early on. I mean, really within my first year, like, oh, you got to keep going, and you kind of got to keep learning. Like, it's not like you graduate your training and like, okay, yay, I'm good, and like run off into the sunset like the hero of forever. Like, no, that's just not how it happens. And then life happens. And so, like, how do you maneuver the balance of life and wrestling, which is also then part of your life, and how much part of your life? And so, it becomes sort of this tap dance routine between all of the different elements of your life to make it all work. Because what people see on the weekend sometimes isn't the whole picture of who you are as a person and all the things you have to do to be able to be there that weekend.
Right.
And so, so I mean, I learned, like I said, I learned that really early. So I kept learning, I kept training, I kept working, and trying to get better and trying to make a positive impact too. That was really, really important for me, to not just walk in the door and be like, haha, look at me. It was, I also have to do and help and do, make the place better.
Yes. I definitely, I can understand where you're coming from on that. Yeah. Leave it better than what you found, it's what they say.
Right. Exactly.
Speaking of which, you've been in the business for a minute, for quite a while. How long has it been now?
Do you see the eye I'm giving you right now? Like,
yeah.
I want to say how long I've been around. Let's just say this is my second millennium.
There you go. Yeah. So it's been a while. So that brings me to this question. It's a 2-parter.
Okay.
You've probably seen a lot of changes. Tell me what's better in pro wrestling now as far as the business, the people, everything, and what's worse now.
On the better side, I mean, like I referenced, when I got in, I was super short compared to 98% of any locker room. And it was a fight. I don't mean physically fight, but like, it was like I had to show that I was worth being there, and that I was not just as good, but had to be better in some cases, and that I had to show up for and fight for. And so today, I think there's a better inclusivity of people of all shapes, sizes, talent, genders, diversity, backgrounds, races, sexes, like you name it. There's a representation now in wrestling, which I think is more reflective of our culture too. Yeah. And so like, that's awesome. And I'm a fan. I mean, maybe because I am one, but I'm more of a fan of like the smaller guy style. Like I always was a bigger fan of technical wrestling. That was just my jam. And maybe it was because I competed in judo and jiu-jitsu and wrestled in high school. Like that was in my brain a lot. So like seeing it in a way that can also be entertaining in pro wrestling made it just that much more exciting for me. So I like how wrestling has become when it comes to bringing in more people, talent-wise. On the bad side, what has gotten worse? Um, See, that's hard.
Mm.
Um, because it's almost up to each individual place. Like, I was gonna
Yeah.
say someone gets slapped for it. Like I mean, I strongly believe in the inclusivity, but you still have to put in the work. Like, there's some people on social media that sometimes I'm like, why? Like, no, you're not that person. Like, but that's an individual thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
social media in life, like, I use it as a marketing tool more than I do for anything else. And I see how some people put themselves out there, and I'm like, do you see the image you've painted for yourself? And I don't think this is truly a representation of you, and it makes you look really bad. And there was somebody, and I'm going to try to be very cautious about how I put this out, um, who I've known now for a few years, who they're young to me. That person is a younger person. It's like, okay, they have a lot more room to learn, but then we'll post about how they deserve all these other opportunities and things should be better and da, 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 da. And they had a match, I would even say a few months ago, and came to me and asked me for my opinion. And the way they even started it was like, yeah, that was bad, wasn't it? Was there anything salvageable? Like, that's how they started the conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked, and I gave what I thought was, this is fair and balanced. This person was very reflective of stuff, and I was like, hey, you know what? A year ago, I don't think you would have been as self-reflective as this. Well, the next day, that person posted on their social media about how people just like to knock on me, and when they give me feedback, and it's all negative, and da, 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 and I was like, wait a minute. You came to me, and I don't even think that tweet was necessarily about me, but it made me go like, why? Like, it makes you look bad because then other people see it might also be thinking the same thing that aren't as delicate with their speech to you about it. Like, how are you showing up and representing yourself? I love that there's multiple avenues of getting the message out, because there's so many different platforms, and that's great. But that also means a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, that's just then that many more platforms you got to get stuff out on. We as a kid, I mean, Derek, I don't know how old you are, so growing up in the Attitude Era,
Mm-hmm.
and here are these insane houses, and those insane houses weren't just on television; they were in live crowds too, for indie events, and it was insane. And there are some places that still get some of those numbers, but not every place gets some of those same numbers anymore. Some places are doing really well, like an MCW, that can. Anytime there's an MCW event in Joplin, Maryland, there's going to be 600 people there.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just their home. It's just what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's been times they've had 1,500 people there, and it's like, oh wow, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can still work today, but it means you have to put in all that hard work. And I think sometimes people get really lazy on, well, I can just post it on my Facebook and it'll be fine. And they forget, no, you have to street team. You need to know, especially if you're a promoter, do you know how to talk to like your local fire department and police that are great at putting out messages in the community, because they're part of your community,
Right.
and like how you talk to them. How do you do street teaming? How do you people who are training others, like, and I would say this is where I have seen some things not go well in training, is past the ability inside the ring. A lot of places never talk about how to cut a promo, never talk about personality, never tell their talent, this is how you talk about wrestling to other people.
Mm.
And because your talent should also be part of that voice that's getting people to come in and see them. Like, how do you get that person to tell that next person when they're at their office job during the week, hey, do you like pro wrestling? Hey, I'm doing pro wrestling. Hey, you should come out and see. Like, there's no learning lesson there to how to get those people to get others invested.
Right.
And that's a huge part that I think is lacking today too.
I get you. And to answer your question, believe it or not, I'm fairly old head. I'm 39 years old, so
Okay.
I was in my teens in the Attitude era. I was going to those ECW shows and saying vulgar stuff in the crowd and living it up, man. So yeah, I've
Oh, you were one of those guys.
oh yeah, I promise I was definitely. But you brought up a good point. Social media. I think it's been great for pro wrestling. here's something I'm not even sure where I stand on
Mm-hmm.
things. I see a lot of complaints on people that get opportunities because they're big on social media. Orange Cassidy, etc., etc. Where do you
Well,
stand on this?
well, like using the example of Orange Cassidy, I don't think Orange was big on social media. Like he really just wasn't.
Hmm.
He was big with the right people and the right connections, and that's this is not saying a bad thing because he's super talented.
Right.
And I think when people first looked at him, there were the two shocking things where he looked smaller than everybody else, and that he would do the lackadaisical, like I'm putting my hands in my pockets and I'm
Hmm.
doing the little lackadaisical kick thing, like. But that was part of it, and they forgot the other 8 minutes that happened in the match with him.
Right.
And it's like, look past that. Like that's what got people's attention in the
Hmm.
same respect. Because then if they watch the rest of it, it's like, oh, look what he's doing with this and how he's turning it around and making it work. Um, and yeah, I think there are some people who do get opportunities on social media. That could be part of the game now. But those people who maybe they do have a great social media, but they're not that great when it comes to talent in the ring, it shows. I mean, they can't really hide it. Um, there's lots of people who post all the time about like, I was once the student and now I'm a teacher, and it's like, but you've been wrestling for maybe 2 years,
Hmm.
and what's happening? And like, you think what? Like, and sometimes I look at their following, and I'm like, you've paid for like half of your following, because I can look at those accounts and it's really easy to see that, like, oh look, Bitcoin, 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 like, no, like,
Right.
so sometimes it's really easy to see like who is legitimate at that and who isn't. um yeah, and who shows up and who doesn't. um and at the same time, there are so many talents out there that don't get a fair shake,
Hmm.
because they just aren't connected in and I don't want to say the right way, that's not the right term, but they're just not connected. They just don't have that same level of opportunity because the door wasn't open for them. um and I now when I do workshops with people and share some things with them, I always start with like, you never really know how people are connected in the world of wrestling,
Hmm.
or and who knows who. So why go out of your way to be a giant swinging jerk to them?
Yeah.
There's no, and I don't say jerk. Like, there's no reason to be, because then that's the reputation you get, and why does anybody want to work with you? And so, how do you put yourself out there with your colleagues in this business that you are somebody that can be worked with? Um, and this has always been true. Even if you, we also grew up in an age where there was Tough Enough, and on camera there were people who would say the wrong things to Vince on camera on Tough Enough, and it was like, you idiot,
Yeah.
like, you don't say that. Oh, I don't learn things well. I don't have a good memory, bro. Like, this was your golden ticket and you totally shredded it in front of your face. um so it's, being mindful of like who how you associate, not necessarily even the who, but how, because that'll get you to the who, um if you play your cards right. But also that means some legwork. Yeah, you do got to travel. Yeah, you do got to leave your own backyard, um sometimes literally. um actually, literally today, there's a new episode of Callahan Uncensored on Impact Plus, and he's talking with Matt Palmer. Matt Palmer is the Monster Hunter. He's out of Texas. He helps to run Metroplex Wrestling, and Metroplex Wrestling, I think, is one of the hidden gems of wrestling in general. They're out of Texas, and there's so much great talent that is down there, and they spend a little bit of time talking about the fact that, like, Matt was like, I could do all the right things. I could get all the attention in the world and pack my building, but no one will ever pay attention to us because we're not doing just giftable wrestling. And then Sammy was like, no, but you have these talented people that you can, that are doing really awesome and cool things, like an Exodus Prime or a Tommy Prince. And it's like, look at these guys that you can market and sell, but that right now, and this has shifted over time, right now, there isn't all of this amazing focus on Texas. There used to be. It's just not there right now. Right now, there's a lot of attention on the Midwest. There's a lot of attention. There's been a lot of attention for a long time on the Northeast, but that rotates over time. And so, how do you get eyes to shift around? Well, sometimes that means you need to go where the eyes are. And that's also hard because even as a talent, to try to knock on promoters' doors and be like, hey, I want an opportunity. Well, why are you different than the 300 other members of talent that are knocking on the door that live within an hour of them?
Right.
And so that's also hard for some talent to realize, like, you may be amazing, but how do you stand out differently than the next guy or gal? Like, what makes you so different to be able to do that over top of people? And it's always like a sell. You have to sell yourself. And then it comes in the weird balance because, like, in the weird psychology of being a wrestler, some people believe what they are selling. Like, you have to believe, oh, I'm great. Like, I'm awesome because, hey, promoter, I want you to book me. So you need to believe that I'm awesome. But then you walk away from that conversation going, you know what? I am awesome. I am the best. I'm the number one in the world. And it's like, but are you?
Right. Yep.
And people sometimes forget, like, you have to humble yourself a little bit and be like, oh, I still got to grow and learn and do these other things, which means sometimes I have to go into other areas. And I've heard that from some people who have, like, up and moved their lives to go to other areas of the country so they can get a different exposure, so they can get more eyes on them. And I see how well they succeed when they get those opportunities, because it's like, oh, they're bringing something different that people in that area haven't seen. And in those right markets, like, wow, look how really far that they grow and excel. And it's amazing when you see it happen.
I love it. You mentioned Sami Callihan. I think we need to get.
I knew it was a mistake. I said it and I was like, I don't want I'm putting him over.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you. We'll try to keep it short, but I think it's fair to give the man his due. In my opinion, an unsung hero. He had, in my opinion, this is me. This is old Spooky Lou talking, but I think he had a big hand in saving Impact Wrestling. He's doing great things with Revolver. What can you tell the folks on the real about Sami Callihan?
So, I mean, Sami is tremendously creative. A lot of the visual identity that you see for Revolver is all him. Like the graphics, the video work, majority him. I shouldn't say all him, but 99% of what you see, it's him, his creation, his direction. Like it really is him. And he does have that eye for talent. He can see the talented people. That all doesn't always mean people like what he has to say, and doesn't mean people always listen to what he has to say, especially if they don't like it. And so that's then the rub, right? Mm-hmm. And that's hard for some people. But Sami and I am friends with Samuel Johnston. Sami Callihan, I want to regularly punch in the face. And I tell him this, and there's more times that he's Sami Callihan than Sami Johnston. And so, we work together at Revolver, but that does not mean that we work together well. I mean, and so hey, we have a thing. We have, we know how to get business done. We just have different perspectives sometimes at looking at the business, but that doesn't mean he's not smart about it. Doesn't mean he's not creative about it. He's amazing at it. And so, like, knowing that he will continue to evolve and also evolve other people is an amazing thing to see.
For sure. Like I say, I think the dude, he's definitely leaving his fingerprint on wrestling, as are you. And you guys are doing good things for wrestling. So definitely props to the both of you.
Thank you.
For the folks that aren't familiar with Revolver, let's sell them on Revolver. Let them know what the locker room's like. Let them know what your average show's like. Why should somebody come see a Wrestling Revolver show?
High-flying, hard-hitting wrestling action. It's a touring brand in the United States. I mentioned before in the last month that we've been to Iowa, Ohio, and Texas. We're doing a little loop right now. We're always looking to expand and grow to more places. A lot of the talent that is involved with Revolver is out of Impact Wrestling, is out of AEW, is some of the best talent in the world. I mean, when you talk the level of we have Jon Moxley, we have Speedball Mike Bailey, we have Ace Austin and Chris Bay and Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, and we have Man Scout and a tent.
Don't you?
I mean, the man, like, I can't tell you when this happened, because now we're talking about something that happened 4 years ago.
Right.
That randomly recently got a whole bunch of viral notice like a month or so ago.
Yeah.
There was like Man Scout would come to the ring with a tent. Tent became part of like what was happening in the ring. Sometimes it was a weapon. Sometimes it was a distraction. And then the tent turned on Man Scout. The tent turned on Man Scout. Like, how does that happen? And then the crowd was like, let them fight. It's a tent. But I'll be damned if Man Scout didn't fight a tent and make it this one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in professional wrestling. Period.
Hell yeah.
Like it's like you're just so captivated by what's happening. And the fact that the crowd egged it on. And not just like, 30 people were here. It was 800 people in that building wanting it. And we gave it to them. We gave it to them. And it was just absolute insanity, and it was absolutely amazing. And that Revolver has this sort of mix of a hybrid style. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what to expect. We have high flyers. We have brawlers. We have guys that are going to make you laugh. We have guys that you want to punch in the face, and sometimes, okay, maybe I'm one of them. It happens in wrestling. Please don't hit me in my mouth. I have brand new teeth. Or let me put my mouth guard in and punch me. It's fine. And you know, we I don't want to. It's hard to say because I think like a Billy Starks. We've had Billy now for years. She just turned 18. Now she's off gallivanting the world and making, she's making 6 figures in the world of professional wrestling, baby. Like that's not an easy accomplishment for anybody to do, let alone an 18-year-old person.
Yeah, good on her. Good on her. Super proud. I know the world's super proud of her, so good on her. Now we're talking about wrestling tents. I'm the first to say wrestling can be anything you want it to be. You can have your invisible stands. I'm all for goofy wrestling. Now I'm getting ready to go to a no-ring deathmatch show. Where does Phil Stamper stand on this no-ring deathmatch scene?
If I look at wrestling, and wrestling is a little bit of everything for everybody, that's part of wrestling. And it's hard to say because even the one name, and you're probably gonna know the name, I'm gonna get right at the top of your head. The one name that often decries some of the violence that happens in wrestling also then celebrates the violence that they were a part of.
Yeah.
And so blood has not been a stranger to our sport. Very highly violent and competitive matches have been no stranger to our sport. It has evolved in this way and with deathmatch wrestling. And honestly, it's a little fun. And it's sort of this... and again, it's all about the way it's presented. And even between the no-ring deathmatch companies, like, all of them do it a little differently. Yeah. And, I look at a mid-death pro, that it isn't just all death matches. There's no ring. There's hardcore matches. You might get a little comedy. Oh, look, there's a death match. I know the show you're talking about in Morgantown that's coming up. Like, the way people do it is part of the fun of it. And I'm not talking about like fun as in comedy, funny as in ha. I'm just like fun as in enjoyment.
Yeah. And
if that's what you like, go and celebrate it. I am also freely the first person to say like, okay, deathmatch wrestling is not my bag. It like I've said before, I'm a huge fan of technical wrestling. That's also not everybody's bag. I totally get that.
Yeah.
And not everybody does technical wrestling well. Same thing, not everybody does deathmatch wrestling well. So like, how is it presented and how is it done? And I remember, Alex Colon, who is now the XPW world champion, is had a match, and I really can't remember where. This is not me not trying to say anybody. I just really can't remember where. Had a death match, and let's say it was a barbed wire bat match. The whole point in that match was to get to the barbed wire bat, and people crapped on him because they weren't just going guns blazing right out of the gate and smashing each other over the head with light tubes. And he was like, the whole point was to get to the bat and use the bat. The moment was the bat. and so like you have that crowd that wants to see an involved form of violence in a different kind of way. But then there are those fans that, no, we want to see that. We want to see the challenge to get to the barbed wire bat and make it be important and make it be used. And so where do you find the medium, and where do fans want to be at? I'm excited. I think no ring events are fun.
Yeah.
It's different, and that's just it. Wrestling, for a lot of people also out there who fell out of love of wrestling, some people say, I wanted something different, and I wasn't getting the different anymore. I wasn't feeling like it was evolving. And then they come back and watch, and it's like, oh, some go, wow, this is really cool, and some go, oh, this isn't my wrestling anymore. Okay, that's both are fine. What made you enjoy it, and what can make you enjoy it again? Probably the majority of the fan base of MCW in Maryland that I'm going to be at this weekend is not going to enjoy going to a no-ring deathmatch show. And half of that crowd at MCW are kids. Like, that's not their bag. That's not and the deathmatch show is not a family-friendly show. No. But most of that crowd probably won't want to go to a family-friendly show. That's fine. It's about what people enjoy at the end of the day.
I agree. Whenever I go to these no-ring shows, it's a completely different crowd. Half that crowd's coming to see the punk rock bands, and they stick around and see the no-ring stuff, and they're like, whoa, I forgot I like wrestling.
Now, I will say, I went to a no-ring event. This was it was over the winter. And it was like I had an event the next day, and I was like, I'm going to go up tonight, and found out that there was this event. And I go to the event. I did not know it was a no-ring show. Got there, and they did this thing where it was like they would do a match. They'd have a band, but the band would have to do the entire setup. They would do a couple songs and break down. They would do another match. They brought in another band that would do the entire setup, play a couple songs, and break down. Excuse me. And it got to be a little too much. It was like 45 minutes in between matches. I'm like, no, if I'm here for a wrestling event, I wasn't here for the band. But that was just me. That just wasn't my vibe, and the space was way too small for even what they were trying to do. So yeah, it depends a little bit on the atmosphere and the talent, and the talent was making it work. Like, really made it work for them, and I was like, bless them, because they put in all the hard work to get people really excited and into it. So it has to be also the right talent, too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I'm so scared that's going to happen tomorrow. Please, just put the death matches together, have the bands play, however you want to do it, but let's not try band then death match, please. I have no power or authority over it.
Yeah.
Just please don't. That's just all I'm saying. So where we want to go in the future? Where does Phil Stamper want to go in the future? Where does Phil Stamper want to see wrestling in the future?
Ooh. I mean, wrestling's going to continue to evolve and change, and I don't know what it's going to further evolve into. I'm excited about seeing more and more new talent come out. And it was interesting, like during the pandemic, saw a couple new faces. And then after the pandemic, it was like, oh, yeah, we've been training this whole time, but we weren't doing live events because there weren't as many live events. And then they came out. It's like, ooh, who are you guys? So now it's like interested in, and then even some faces that vanished before the pandemic even happened, who now came back. And it's like, what's happening? So like we have this interesting mix of people right now that I want to see more of. And there's some really talented places that don't get the love that they deserve, for whatever reason that may be. Just not necessarily in the best area for what they're kind of trying to do. Maybe they haven't got into their marketing plan. Maybe they need a better mix of talent. Whatever the case may be, that some places aren't just experiencing some of that success. Okay, change something up. Do something a little different that would get people interested and attentive to what you're doing.
I dig it. My neck hurts from nodding the whole time. We're in the final 10 minutes, Phil. In the final 10 minutes, I give everybody the opportunity. Plug whatever. You've plugged the shows, but if you have any merch, your socials, at the same time, if there's any words of advice you can give to up-and-coming talent, or anything you can tell the fans about wrestling, anything you want to put out there in the ether, it's all yours, my man.
I mean, definitely keep working at it. Success is not going to come overnight. I used to say one of my biggest pet peeves in wrestling were the people that, what was it? The people who believed things would happen for them because of magic. And then my other pet peeve was when things happen for people because of magic. But it's going to happen. And that doesn't mean like you are any less. It means, okay, they had that opportunity. Maybe now it's your turn to be the next one. Magical recognition. That was the phrase I was trying to think of. I'm actually trying to see if I can find the term I used. Wrestlers who never travel more than an hour waiting for magical recognition. and then magical recognition.
Ah.
Both happen. And people don't get upset by it. When your friend gets a better opportunity than that you think you deserve, don't be mad at your friend. They were your friend for a reason. You liked them, liked working with them. Don't be mad at them for that opportunity, because you don't know how it might turn back around on you, for you, with you. So don't shut that door. And it's more than that, because again, it's your friend. You should be happy. I mean, I would say the people who I would consider my best friends in life, I know because of wrestling. And actually, my two best friends I met because of wrestling are no longer involved in wrestling. But if I didn't have wrestling, I never would have met them.
Right.
So don't close that door, because you don't know what those interactions are going to be like. You will always continue to learn, and it might not be the technical move that's going to happen in the ring. It could be another lesson that you're going to learn. It could be how you better market yourself, how you use social media a little bit different. How do you find discounts at gas stations and hotels? It could be any kind of thing. You never know what you're going to learn that day. So when you get that opportunity to learn, take it in. Ask questions of other people. Don't be afraid or hesitant to do so. And that if you get for every like 10 times you're told no, you're gonna get that one yes that means 10 times more.
Yeah.
See, I'm not gonna give you just the like, oh, keep your mouth shut and your ears open, because no, like sometimes you need to talk. Sometimes like my life outside of wrestling involves working in education, and I hear some people at times go like, oh, this generation, they just won't shut up. They keep asking me why. You're not telling them why? Like, I'm like, tell them. They want to know why. They want to experience why. They want to get why, so that they can do the next thing.
Yeah.
They're not trying to rush the solution. They want to know that next part, so they can put it all together. Do it. Give it to them. So me, I'm like, yeah, there's appropriate times you need to keep your mouth shut, but there are times like, ask the question. Just ask it, because you don't know. Again, you're building a connection. You don't know what that could mean or where it could lead you.
I dig it. Thank you. Yep. Good advice. Solid advice from the man himself. We still got a few minutes to play with, so everybody's favorite segment on the show. I didn't get it out. We're going to get it out now. Can you wrap us up with a crazy road story?
Ooh. Oh, no.
I know you got a few.
I do, but now my brain's like, it's overloading on stuff. I guess this isn't the craziest, but it is one of the more recent. Okay. So I flew out to Iowa for Revolver, and my first flight is delayed. I want to say I was just maybe a little bit extra in the airport, not super long, maybe half an hour. We get on the plane, we wait another hour, and we take off. So we land and get to I had a layover that was only going to be like 45 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, did I miss my flight? Like, what am I going to do? Well, when I got there, the flight that was my connecting flight was also delayed. So I was able to make that flight, thank goodness. But then I sit there in the airport for another hour, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. But then we take off. I'm like, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm going to my destination. What could possibly go wrong? We land in Des Moines. We are all the way at the end of the terminal. And we're pulling up to the building, and we're all kind of sitting there, and there's this moment. It was funny, because it was like all of us at the same time are going, wait a minute, why aren't we getting off this plane? And we all start looking around, and we're looking outside, and it's like, what's going on? And it was like by magic. Within about 30 seconds, the pilot comes on and goes, hey, listen, they're having a problem with the jet bridge. They're trying to figure it out. They have to tow us backwards because we're too close to the building. So it's going to take about 10 minutes. Hang tight. And we're all like, what? And as he says that, I'm looking out my window, and I don't know if you've ever seen one of those old school, the actual staircase they pull up to the airplane and you have to get off on the runway.
Yeah, okay.
I see one being pulled by one of these little tow carts and then driven into the darkness, into further deeper into the runways. And I was like, I think that was meant for us. Okay. So we're waiting. We're now, remember, we had been told 10 minutes. Now we're at 30 minutes. And the captain comes on, and as, like, ding, ding. So I have a little bit of an update. And as he says that, I see a plane pulling in next to us. So the operations at the airport screwed up. We were always supposed to be the first plane at this gate. The plane that is now arriving that you see approaching on our left just got here and was always planned to be later than us. Well, somehow operations at the airport scheduled them to have the jet bridge first. So we are not able to unboard this plane. They have to get that plane unboarded first, and then they'll bring back the jet bridge. Don't worry, it won't take any more than about 10 to 15 minutes. And I was like, I have never in my life been on a plane that has been completely unboarded in 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Well, as we watch them connect that bridge over to that plane, well, here comes the tow cart that had that magical staircase, comes zooming back up, comes up to the plane. I see the pilot get off the plane and go onto the runway. It was like, well, this is great. The pilot has just left us. What's happening? About another 30, 45 minutes go by, and I'm on my Facebook and I'm scrolling through, and I see a message from somebody, like their own post, and they're like, waiting for my mom at the airport. She's stuck on the runway because they gave their jet bridge to the other plane. I'm like, and it was another wrestler who I knew and who I didn't know was there and wasn't there for Revolver. I was like, are you in Des Moines? He goes, why, yes, I am. I'm like, I'm on the same plane. His mother's 2 seats in front of me. So we start talking and getting into this like whole big conversation. And it was just like, we were just more making fun of the randomness of like her son that isn't from Des Moines that I knew because of wrestling, and her talking to me because of wrestling. And now we're just stuck in the, like, on this like airplane. Finally, we see the pilot get back on the plane. We're now at like almost, I think at the end of it, we were almost 2 hours on the plane, sitting 15 feet from the building. And they go, they're not going to move the jet bridge over. Ever. So we're going to old school it off this plane, and you're going to take the rickety staircase. He didn't say rickety, but it was. Staircase to the tarmac so we can walk the 15 feet to the building. So we all get off the plane. We're all tired. I remember like I was trying to like I'm like messaging everybody who's like waiting to pick me up, like, what is going on? Why are you taking so long in the airport? I'm like, I'm not in the airport yet. I'm still on the plane. So get off. Then I have, the weekend of Revolver. Come back. And so I'm there. It's like a 5 a.m. flight. My plane is there. The jet bridge is connected to the plane. And I watch as they pull the jet bridge away from my plane and give it to the next plane over.
Oh, no.
I was like, how is this happening again? Our pilot was in there, and I have never seen the pilot of the plane get on the microphone inside the airport. And he comes up and is like, I need to tell y'all, I have never seen this before. I don't know what's going on. I've heard this happened before the weekend, too. And I was like, yeah, it did. And so I think we sat there about an hour and a half before they got that other plane off and boarded, and they left before we could get then onto our plane to then take off. And then I landed in, I think it was Chicago, on my way back, standing there, or we're waiting. We finally get on ready to board, and they go, ladies and gentlemen, before we board this plane, I literally got out of line and sat down. Because I was like, I already know where this is going.
Oh, wow.
We are not able to board it this time. There is a mechanical issue. We need to get maintenance out here. Don't worry, they should be here soon. We'll board your plane as soon as we can. They then, in about 45 minutes, started to board us. We all get on the plane. We're sitting on the plane. What's going on? Ladies and gentlemen, the mechanical issue we mentioned to you, the pilot's chair came loose. We can't secure the chair to the airplane. We have to wait for maintenance to come to fix the chair, and then they have to sign off on it. Or no, I think they just said they have to come out and fix the chair first. They come out, they fix the chair, it takes like 30, 40 minutes. So we've been on this plane now almost an hour waiting for maintenance to show up. So the maintenance guy leaves. We see him leave the plane. We're waiting. We're waiting. Pilot comes on the air. So yes, you saw the maintenance guy leave. The chair is fixed. We have to wait for them to sign off that the chair has been fixed, and that's somebody else, and we're trying to get them from the other side of the airport.
Oh, wow.
So all 4 flights I had that weekend got delayed. I made it home. I don't remember how many hours late when I finally got home, and by the time I was like, I think I'm just done. I was like, I've never had all 4 flights be just this wonky. What just happened?
Wow. And I tell you what I take from that story. I'm sorry you went through all that. That's insane. But what I really picked up on, and I want the audience to kind of pick up on as well, is it's a small world. Wrestling has the craziest way of connecting people. It's something unworldly that science will never identify. And Phil, you've always been super cool to me, super friendly, giving me great advice with nothing to gain but just being a good dude. So thank you. Thank you for that, man. And hey, man, anytime you got time, which I know is rare, you're always welcome to come back on the show, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And you know, I'm happy to do this anytime.
Hell yeah. Well, we're going to have him back, folks. In the meantime, you know how we do. Treat each other with kindness and respect. And go out there and live your dreams. Do it for Spooky Doo. Do it for Phil Stamper. Do it for yourself, damn it. It's been another awesome episode with another quality grade A human being. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, President Phil Stamper.
Thank you, sir.
Hell yeah.